Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're on volume 28 of Yona of the Dawn. Volume 27 just came out on Patreon, and volume 26 on YouTube, but I actually had some comments from volume 25 from YouTube that you wanted to bring up. I usually don't bring up comments from YouTube or Patreon with this series because we kind of already talk about what's discussed in the discussion portion. We just kind of expand a little bit about it. But Diafly and Hani Ahmed had some really cool comments, so I wanted to bring them up before we started this volume. But I just reread volume 27, and I was like, man, setting stuff up, right? We don't officially have the next arc started. I'm assuming that's what this volume is going to do. But we've set up that the Kai Empire, there's been some like power struggles, and old Hazara is kind of like out of commission maybe, so somebody else has kind of stepped forward. So that may be our new big bad antagonist to deal with. But also some things about Yona and Suwon and kind of the lore of the mythology, and King Il coming to surface, where King Il's his whole keeping Suwon away from stuff is kind of all starting to come to a head. And I feel like Kusanagi is setting up for some reveals about Suwon's past to be given to us, the audience, because at this point Suwon's been a big mystery box, but we'll see. But Diafly, kind of relating to this, Diafly had a really cool comment about volume 25, saying that KeiShuk, and KeiShuk kind of worries me because he is smart. He's a good analyst. He kind of understands strategy and understands and reads people pretty good. But he rightfully, and it's funny that they mention this for volume 25 because it comes back up in volume 27, mentions how dangerous Yona is. That she has like all the parts and pieces. You know, Suwon throughout this entire story has been gathering, you know, getting all the tribes to come together. Yona's kind of doing that too. She's got Tae-Jun in the fire tribe. She has Riri and the water tribe. She has Hawk in the wind tribe. She hasn't won Guntae over by chance, which is what Suwon's done. However, the people of Awa support her for stopping the pirates, stopping Kumji. So she has kind of gathered through her friendship and loyalty and kindness, gathered these people all around her, whereas Suwon has done it through his military expertise and ambition. So it's interesting to see how these two kind of have used these different aspects of their personality to draw people to them. And that relates to Hani Ahmed's comment about the cover of volume 25, saying that the cover of volume 25, you see Yona and Suwon back to back. Yona has her hand over her heart, and Hani Ahmed said that was to show that her allies and relationships were gained by following her heart and being kind to others and kind of, you know, putting her heart out there for others to see. And I was like, yeah. And then Suwon has his hand on the sword that killed King Il, that he used his own ambition and cunning to gain his allies and to bring the kingdoms together. And I'm like, oh, that's so good. So I thought those two comments kind of went hand in hand to talk about the situation between Yona and Suwon and how they are so very similar in drawing people to them, but also so very different in how they do it. And I was like, that's really, really cool. So yeah, maybe that'll have some bearing on volume 28. I don't know. The volume 28 cover is Yona looking gorgeous, so I'm all about that. I love the purples and blues and reds that are all up there. Her hair almost looks like a fuchsia color. It's red, but it has like a pink fuchsia undertone. It's not quite like Ariel Little Mermaid red, which it is kind of in the anime, but here it's softer, which I think works for the watercolor. So yeah, I'm ready to read volume 28. Hawk and Yona are kind of at it's the ball's still in Yona's court from last volume. Like, her and Hawk have kind of acknowledged that, yes, Hawk loves her, but Hawk, bless his heart, as Jeha would say, he's so stuck in unrequited love mode that he doesn't think that Yona's going to reciprocate it. And I'm like, she kissed you, but Hawk took her statement of the kiss being a farewell gesture literally. I'm like, if Hawk kisses her back as his own farewell gesture, I'm gonna lose it. It's gonna be over. But the ball's in Yona's court, and I just want her to be like, Hawk, I like you love me. Because at this point, I still think Hawk's not over Suwon. He's still trying to figure out how to like resolve his hatred. He's turned to Jeha and Yona for guidance in that, and they're helping him. But he's not over that, and he still thinks Yona just likes him as a friend. And I'm like, what is it gonna take? so Kusanagi's like, I'm giving you little bits of romance, but it's still a slow burn. And I'm like, fine. Be that way. So I'm pretty excited for this volume, y'all, and to dive in and see what happens, but let's not waste any more time, shall we? We are going to dive into volume 28 of Yona of the Dawn, and we are going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Oh. What was this volume? What was this volume? This was called Anxiety, the volume. That's what this was. I thought that one volume, like 25 or 24 or 25 back in Xing, was anxiety inducing. No, this one was like it's such a weird combo because on the one hand, this volume was absolutely hilarious. The first 3 chapters of this, up until KeiShuk arrives, the first 2 chapters of Rumors and Carelessness and Tae-Jun's carelessness were like absolutely hilarious, and I was dying of laughter. And then once KeiShuk arrives, things just take a turn. Oh my God, this story is getting much, much more elaborate and much more complicated. And it's like Kusanagi took this simple premise of this girl who's tied to these legendary dragon warriors and said, okay, she's separated from the palace. She's going on her journey. She's going to find the dragon warriors. And at the time, way back in the anime, way back in like volumes 9 and 10, or whenever we first met ZENO, and ZENO asked, what are your objectives? At the time, Yona was like, oh, well, I don't really want to go to she's like, I don't want to go to Hiryu Palace. I don't want to get revenge on Suwon. She's never wanted revenge on Suwon. She's like, no. She's like, I just want to help people. And at the time, she was like, all I want to do is go around and help people any way that I can and make my kingdom better. And it kind of aligned with Suwon's goals as well. But it's so funny to think that we've gone from the happy, hungry bunch in volume 12, 12, 13 volumes ago. We went from the happy, hungry bunch back then that were bandits pretending to be Robin Hood characters. And now you can't do that anymore because everybody's figured out the game. They figured out that Yona's alive. They figured out the Dragon Warriors are real. And that's things. I want ZENO to say something. And I feel like ZENO might say something in the future. He's just holding back because ZENO's like been there, done that. But in all honesty, ZENO's been doing that alone. Like ZENO, the Dragon Warriors themselves were only around that one lifetime. And ZENO knows experience from that. So I'm waiting for him to say something to Yona, and maybe we'll get to that. But there's just too much chaos. But KeiShuk brings up a very good point. But also, he's not helping matters either. I'm like, I don't like KeiShuk. I don't like Gobi with the Kai people. I don't like that at all. I don't like the idea of kidnapping Yona. I don't like this Ying dude, the Kulbo dude. I don't like him at all. He's bad news. I don't like the fact that he's interested in Yona. I don't like that Jeha's injured. I don't like that Ogi's gonna betray them. I don't like that HakYona ended terms without her finishing her thoughts to him. I'm just like, you all expect me to wait before reading volume 29. Oh my God. Kusanagi. But she's making the story so complicated. And the way that it's complicated isn't convoluted. It all makes sense. And Suwon's not even involved at this point. KeiShuk just went to go do this on his own. Suwon's not really even involved. It's like, oh my God. So, on the one hand, Igni's amazing. I love her. On the one hand, we get Kashi. Kashi is Yona's mom. We get backstory on her. She seems devout. I'm interested in her. I want to know where she's from. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about this volume. I'm just floored. I'm like, Kusanagi, you beautiful woman. So the cover is Rumors, and I wanted to sing Adele the whole time, but I can't sing, so I won't make your eardrums bleed. So Tae-Jun. Oh, Tae-Jun, sweet, sweet Tae-Jun, the source of all the humor in this series. Tae-Jun was a godsend in here. I just love that. I love that Tae-Jun is very much like his mom. He's very traditional, right? I love that Igni, she, from the outside, when you first see the shape of her face and her hair, she looks a lot like Kyo-ga. But then when you see her eyes are very much like Tae-Jun's. So Tae-Jun has his mother's eyes and his father's features. Kyo-ga has his mother's features and his father's eyes. So it's cool how it's cool how Kusanagi makes them blend together and look like siblings, but also look like both their parents. And it's very realistic. I'm like, cool. They're like a little homogenation of their parents. It's cool. We'll talk about her. She's great. I like Igni. I like her a lot. But Yeah, Tae-Jun's like, well, men shouldn't be sleeping with Yona, and Hak's like, yeah, we've been doing that this whole time, so I don't know why that's a problem. And so I just love Hak is so bold and verbal about his love of Yona, because and I like that he likes Tae-Jun now. I like the Hak's like, you've made me warm up to that stupid guy from the Fire Tribe. I guess I like him now. I'm like, oh, Hak, my sweet dude. I love he's like, I wasn't lying about loving her. And I love Tae-Jun's like, okay. There were so many romantic moments between Hak and Yona in this volume. This volume was so good, but I was like, stress. And so Yona, of course, is like, I like that Hak-Chi is actually like trying to get Hak and Yona together. He's like behind the scenes being like, well, I didn't follow him because he looked like everything was all right. Why should I follow him? I didn't want to seem like a peeping Tom. And Tae-Jun's like, I just absolutely love it. But Ogi, my dude. I feel like ZENO on the last page knew something was up, and I can't believe that Kusanagi ended the volume there. I can't believe that she did. I'm hoping that ZENO's like, let's not follow this stranger danger. Seems like a trap. Let's not do that. I'm like, oh, God. I hope they get out of there. I don't want Yona to get captured again. So we get this idea of how the tribes all handle the dragon myths and going towards the power. And we get the sky. The sky tribe is the royal family in the center, and we have the earth, wind, fire, and water around them. Captain Planet is around them, and sky tribe is the heart in the center. So on the most basic level, the wind tribe, which makes sense for them because they're the wind tribe, they go with the flow. They breeze on through. They're like, whoever's the king is king, and we'll just follow them, and we'll do what we have to do. Very straightforward, makes sense for Hak's personality, totally makes sense. They're the most casual, straightforward of the four tribes. And the fire tribe is obviously the most complicated, but the wind tribe is the most uncomplicated. The second most uncomplicated, surprisingly, is the water tribe, but it makes sense because, like, water, you just, go wherever the wind takes you, and water just goes with the flow. So it makes sense that water and wind are the two most laid-back tribes when it comes to the whole ruling thing. The wind tribe's just going to do whatever the king tells them to because that seems like the right thing to do. The water tribe says that they look at the big picture, and they're like, we are going to look at the big picture, and if the king is overall best for the kingdom, we will follow them. And in this case, they're indebted to both Yona and Suwon for protecting their kingdom, so like, we'll go along with it. We're not going to try to usurp the throne. So the wind tribe and the water tribe, not a problem. Now Guntae is the third one that's kind of the third least complicated. He is a loyal troop if he believes in the king. So as long as he believes in Suwon, he's going to be loyal and fight him to the bitter end. But if he thinks that Suwon is not going to be up to snuff and able to protect the kingdom, then he doesn't have a problem with stepping in and trying to take the throne for himself. Which is kind of surprising because I wouldn't picture Guntae as being one that would try to usurp the throne. But I guess if he thinks that the earth tribe's not going to be protected by him, I guess that makes sense. And then the fire tribe is the most complicated, which of course, that's where we're back to. It makes sense because we started out this journey with the Happy Hungry Bunch back in like volume 12 with the fire tribe, and we've been going throughout all the tribes. Well, I guess we technically started with the earth tribe, but the fire tribe is really where we came together as a group, as all four dragons, and started our journey to make the country better. And so it makes sense that when we come back to the fire tribe after our adventures, things are much more complicated than they were when we left. So that makes sense. But the fire tribe looks at it as the throne automatically belongs to them because they're descendants of the Crimson Dragon King. But since the death of Sujin, things have gotten more layered and complicated, and Kyo-ga and Tae-Jun are humiliated. So, well, Kyo-ga is. Tae-Jun's been like working behind the scenes in other aspects. So things are just very complicated, and the whole thread of these tribes is hanging on a balance with the royal family. And Suwon has done, up until this point, a job of bringing them all together after they were on the verge of being very divisive under King Il. But Yona has now made this more complicated. So now everyone knows that the Crimson Dragon King could possibly be reincarnated through Yona and that the dragons exist. And some people believe that the dragons are working with Suwon. Some believe that they're trying to kill Suwon. There's no accurate story. There's no public story that's common knowledge. Everybody's thinking different things. And so it's making things chaotic, which things were so much simpler whenever they were just the bandits that nobody knew about, right? But when you think about it, that was doomed to not be a long-term thing, right? So, oh my God. And then there's judo was brought up in this briefly, but I wanted to mention it. Judo is brought up briefly in this. People wonder if judo, and Yona doesn't think that. Back then, they wondered if he'd become king instead of Yuhan, the hero who would lead him to victory. So that they wonder if judo would actually if he's supporting Suwon because he hated King Il too. But she brings up the fact that judo seemed to become much more distant after Hawk became her bodyguard. I think judo just doesn't like Hawk, and judo is threatened by Hawk. But there's still some mystery to judo, so I'm not sure, but there's something there. Judo knows something that we don't know yet as the audience. So that's interesting. So I'm going to pin that in the back of my brain for later, right? But Ogi, it's like Ogi's talking to her and then all the people come in. And the people aren't trying to be, the people all are blushy faced and drunk. They're all drunk. They're not trying to be mean, but they're definitely overstepping their boundaries, right? Like KeiShuk gets really flustered, but they don't get mad at KeiShuk. They're like, oh, it's not a prop. Look at him. And the dragons kind of have like PTSD where, back in Xing, Goji's men tried to take them away and capture them. And even these people just touching them, even if it's out of reverence, they get freaked out by that. They're like, no, give us our space. Leave us alone. We don't want you near us. And the people are like, oh, are they mad at us? Wonder if they're angry. And then it's just chaos. And Zeno's like, yeah, we need to leave. Zeno, I feel like Zeno knows the writing on the wall, but Zeno doesn't want to dictate what they should do. He's like, I don't want to tell you what we should do, but we probably shouldn't stay here. Like, Zeno's seeing that things are about to get a lot more complicated. I feel like Zeno's quietness is somewhat concerning. And then Gobi, I hate Gobi. I officially don't like him. I think Sarah in the YouTube comments was like, I really don't like Gobi. And now reading this volume, I'm like, damn it, he's just going to cause a bunch of problems. He is going to cause a lot of issues. Joining up with the Kai Empire, because he's on the run from Xing. I don't get good vibes. I don't like where this is headed at all with him. No. So Riri, though, she has a part to play in all of this, and we don't know exactly what it's going to be yet. But I still like that Yura and Tetra are trying to set her and Suwon up, and she's like, no, it's not going to work out. You don't understand. He's not into girls. But KeiShuk. Now, did KeiShuk really intentionally nearly run over the girl because he's just that much of an asshole? Or was he internally thinking to himself about Yona and he was so distracted he didn't notice her and he just couldn't be bothered to care? Either way, it does kind of suck that he just doesn't even stop. And Riri's like, hey, and Yura and Tetra save that little girl. And that just makes the people there go like, what an asshole. So it's not helping his reputation. She's like, you'd think he'd care, but he's so concerned about the Dragon Warriors and Yona that his mind isn't even on the townspeople at this point. So that's when Riri hears all of the rumors. And she's like, I kind of already know all this, but then she finds out the rumor that Suwon killed King Il. It wasn't Hawk. And she's like, oh. And she kind of knows that Suwon and them are responsible. She doesn't know to what extent the whole story, but she knows there's some responsibility there. And so she's like, because the townspeople have all figured out, well, if Yona's still with Hawk and he wouldn't have killed King Il or she wouldn't have stood for it. So who killed him? Can't imagine. So so we'll talk about KeiShuk's idea here, but I love the idea of the murmurs, like the dark mist rolling in and just being like murmur, 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 like just it all surrounding him. And so Riri is suspicious of KeiShuk. She doesn't like him, but she doesn't know exactly what his game is yet. So we have our first author's note, but it's like 32 pages into the volume, so we're deep in here already. This is Yona the Dawn, volume 28. Thank you so much to my readers who have been following the story for so long. This time, Yona the Dawn is coming out with a fan book in Japan. I drew about 30 pages of cover illustrations, short comics, 4-panel comics, illustrations, etc. I've even included the color art I've uploaded to Twitter. I think this book will help you learn more about the characters in Yona the Dawn, so I hope you check it out. It was hectic working on it alongside my serialized comic. I still haven't seen the final product, so I hope it turned out well. I'm sure it did. I really would like that at some point. Things are noisy in town today. So yeah, KeiShuk is like, it's interesting because KeiShuk is like, we finally made it this far. So KeiShuk is with Suwon a pretty great deal, and they've had this plan, whatever that entails. But here's the thing, Suwon, I'm curious what KeiShuk thinks the final product of this plan is, because Suwon has made the point to Yona that he doesn't want to stay king. But KeiShuk seems to think that he is going to stay king. So what's the deal? What's going on? So I'm curious to know what's going to happen with that. But it's odd because Suwon leads me to think that he eventually wanted Yona to come back and rule, or wanted something, or maybe wanted to dismantle the entire royalty establishment itself. I'm curious. I wonder if Suwon wanted to get to a point where there would be like a council, where there wouldn't be a royal family and a monarch anymore. It would just be like a council of people ruling instead of a monarch. And he would step down as king and say, because that would kind of tie into the power of the people, where the people's rulers all ruled together and made decisions together. And it wouldn't be a monarch or a king anymore that was brought down by divine providence. So maybe that's what he's trying to aim for, and KeiShuk's on board with that idea, but Yona's mucking it up. So, interesting. That I don't know if that is the case. It wouldn't surprise me, because that would kind of tie to Suwon giving more equality to the people. But in order to get to that point where you can have a council ruling and a government body ruling instead of just a monarch, you have to make sure that your borders are protected. So maybe that's what Suwon's plan is to protect the borders and keep the other nations from being a threat, and then dismantle the monarchy and create like a council. I don't know. We'll see what happens with that, right? We got a lot more I feel like we have a lot more plot to get through before we get to that point. But Tae-Jun, he's trying his hardest, right? And then I love that Hak just is like, your subordinates gave us vegetables, they're farmers now. And he's like, Tae-Jun's like, this is ridiculous. It's just chaos. And I like that Igni shows up. And yeah, she has Tae-Jun's eyes, but she kind of looks like Kyo-ga. Nice. These are my friends. And her looking at Yona and seeing her mom's eyes. We don't get to see Kashi we only see she has black hair in the flashback. We don't get to see her full face. Kusanagi, you coward. I know you're going to show it to us eventually, though. But yeah, I'm pleased to see you've returned safely. So yeah. And then we go to, I love that Kyo-ga just spills stuff all over him. He's like, where's my brother? And then he goes to take a bath, and he's like, sploosh. We get a lot of Kyo-ga fan service in this volume, by the way. I'm not complaining. Kyo-ga's a handsome guy. Guy's built. He looks like Sephiroth. He looks like Sephiroth from Final Fantasy with his long, like, white blonde hair and his, like, that moment when he jumps up from the bath and you can see, like, his bicep and everything. He looked like Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII. It's great. But then, yeah, ZENO's like, rich people have amazing baths. And they're like, aha, bye. The humor in these first two chapters is wonderful. And then it all gets, insane from there. But yeah, Kyo-ga doesn't even know they're there. And they've shown up. And so he invokes the Crimson Dragon King for strength, which is hilarious because Yona's there. Kija takes it as a challenge. And then Kija gets too strong and clunks Kyo-ga out. Wonderful. The humor in this is just amazing. But old HakYona ending up in the bridal suite. And I love that the servant's like, hey, see you and your husband, huh? So here's some perfume for tonight. Have fun! And poor Yona, poor sweet summer child Yona, does not understand what the perfume is for. Hak knows, though. I just love that Hak's like, so what's the problem? And this is a very good point. This is a really good point in this moment because Hak's like, we've stayed in a tent together. And she's like, mm-hmm. He's like, the tent were a lot smaller than this. And she's like, mm-hmm. He's like, so there's more space here. So what's the problem? She's like, oh, nothing. She's like, well, Tae-Jun did prepare us. And he's like, I don't think this was Tae-Jun's idea at all. I love that Hak's like, no, Tae-Jun would not want us near each other. So this was definitely the work of the servant girl. And so then she's like, I guess I should rub this perfume on, it's to help me sleep. And he's like, you don't understand what that's for. He's like, it's to seduce men. It's going to cause the opposite of sleeping. And she's like, yeah. He's like, I'm sure some people like this. And him watching her. And what does he put on her head? He like stacks up little pillow. He stacks up the fruit on top of her head because she's frozen. Yeah. So Hak, for the record, perfume doesn't really bother him. He's not really fazed by it. It's fine. And she's like, Tae-Jun, you idiot! And he's like I said, I really don't think he had anything to do with it. But then they all show up. Kusanagi's comedic drawing in these chapters is amazing. Like poor Kyo-ga being knocked out and unconscious, and just Hawk's humor about like, where should we hide the body? And they're like, he's not dead. It's so good. Like this entire page, I just want to take a picture of this double spread because it's literally the funniest damn thing. It's absolutely wonderful. I love it. And then, and even the point where they're like, Tae-Jun, Kyo-ga's mom, and she shows up. It's great. It's wonderful. We had no choice but to bundle him up and bring us with him. And so, God, these chapters were great. But yeah, so then Ri Hazara and his brother, fun times. We do get a second author's note. I've gathered questions from our readers for the fan book. Thank you so much for asking so many. Some of the more common ones were, who was Judo's first love? Is Judo married? Who's Judo's partner? Etc. I thought my only editor, who pushes for old men characters, was interested in such things. Judo isn't the only one who's single. Haha. Ogi is also getting on in years. Perhaps it's a difference in popularity. I just want freedom for a little longer. Don't say it's a difference in popularity. So Ogi and Judo are sadly single. Coolbo. Ying Coolbo. Yeah, he's got a pretty cool head wrap, but he also seems like a total douche. So, fun times. He's just, any guy that shows up gnawing on a piece of meat, and that's like the first exchange you've had with them for the day, they're probably a douche. Or a tool, however you want to phrase it. But yeah, so Ri Hazara, his eye was taken out by Kija, which is interesting, right? And so Ying wants to see these monsters in action. I hate that they're called monsters. I'm like, they're the happy hungry bunch. They're not monsters. Stop it. And so then the humor of chapter 160 where Tae-Jun is just like, he's fantasizing. He's like, Tae-Jun, could you stay with me? And he's like, in my dreams, I'm allowed to fantasize. He's like, Princess Yona. Like, it's just, oh my God. Tae-Jun, the comedy of his character cannot be understated. And it's the funniest damn thing in the whole series. I freaking love Tae-Jun. But then, yeah, he just shows up, sees this entire sense of chaos, a salacious bedroom, his brother naked, wrapped up in a sheet, his mother's there, Yona with a bunch of men. Tae-Jun's like, I don't even know how to process this. And so Yoon gives a highly edited account of what happens. And so then he's like, Hook-chi, why'd you let them go? And he's like, I was gambling. They seemed fine. And so we get the idea that, as if things couldn't get any worse, Hook-chi arrives there at the palace looking for Kyo-ga, who's nowhere to be found. Yay. And he's like, And so then it's just like, it's such a comedy by numbers of Tae-Jun being like, let's get you distracted so you don't go look at my brother. He's sick, but he's not too sick. He's fine, but he's not fine enough to see you. And it's like, oh my God. And so Hook-chi is kind of a jerk too. And he suspects that Yona's there. And Tae-Jun's like, I'm not good at hiding my emotions. He's like, why would you think that? And he's like, crap, the king already knows about them. And so Hook-chi, though, he digs the knife a little bit, right? He's like, I thought it was General Kyo-ga, but if you have such foresight about battles, you would have seen through your father's schemes. Or perhaps you did see and didn't bother to stop him. That's a little below the belt. That's below the belt. You didn't have to do that, KeiShuk. You didn't have to go there. Guy lost his dad. You don't have to go there. But I give points to Tae-Jun. He keeps his cool. And he's like, hey, let's go. It's fine. And I love that his mother, Igni, I love her character because she's like, my poor sons have been made fun of. And she clearly loves Tae-Jun, which is so nice. And she's like, my poor sons have been made fun of. And you all stood up for him and were his friend. And it's like, it's so cute. And I love even the soldiers are like, wow, that guy was rude to you. And Tae-Jun's like, it's fine. He can say whatever he wants. Like the growth on our boy Tae-Jun. I love it. I love it so much. But So anyway, we go back to Princess Yona and Hawk and all of them trying to figure out what to do. And KeiShuk and them get to the thing. It's just chaos is about to happen. I like the maid. I like the maid woman. She didn't give him away. Good on her. Good on her. She didn't describe him. She's like, I can't do that. I'm like, good job, dear. And then they go into the room. And we have another author's note. Letters to me. Sometimes I receive gifts from both me and my characters. Thank you so very much. I gladly read all the messages left on my Twitter and my blog. I'm so sorry I can't reply to you, but please don't spend too much money on your gifts. I really appreciate that sentiment. I'm just so glad you choose Yona out of all the other books. I'm also incredibly grateful for letters from overseas. I need to write her a letter. I'd love to write her a letter and just tell her that I'm reading this story and it's wonderful. Oh, and then they find, I love that when Kyo-ga is passed out, he just looks like a doll. His head and stuff is so ridiculous. But KeiShuk's like, what? Like, his expression is equally like, what? KeiShuk just looks like a snake. He looks like a snake. He just has very serpentine features. And so then they're like, he's alive and naked. I was like, what's going on? And so that's when Sheena comes in to make a distraction. And I love the way that he's drawn. Oh my God. Sheena with that black and white contrast. God, that's so good. That may be like the picture with the thumbnail. I don't know. It's just so good. And the eyes of the dragon. And I love the face of Sheena like reaching over and seeing his face like above him. It's a monstrous eye is peering into my mind. Like that power that Sheena has. And so KeiShuk knows enough about the mythology. He knows enough about the dragons to know what each of them is supposed to do. And he gets especially excited about ZENO, much to ZENO's displeasure. He's like, damn it. And so he goes after them. But he's like, a sense of menace that seemed as if it could swallow a person whole. Have there been such individuals with such power in Kyo-ga all this time? Like the fact that everybody's starting to realize how powerful the dragons are, that's why they all split up. That's why their power was hidden, because others try to take it or destroy it because they're afraid of it. And it's like, or use it, right? They don't just let them go. They can't just let the dragons be and do their own thing. They have to try to take over. They have to either try to use the dragons, destroy the dragons, or they don't understand the dragons. They fear them. And it's like, no, damn it. They're just people with special powers. But yeah, so Tae-Jun finds out what happens and they end up in the garden of Igni. And it's beautiful. I love that she describes, she's like, I love that she also lures Pew in with the nuts. And it's like, and Hawk's like, anybody that feeds that squirrel is its friend. And I like Sheena's response. He's like, anybody that feeds Ow is a good person. And it's like, okay, fair enough. I like she says, I planted strong seeds in our soil and nourished them with care. Like, she seems somebody that's very thorough and elaborate. And like does her homework, right? She's like, thank you for saving us, but why? And she says that you protected Tae-Jun and it was rather endearing. She's like, I don't want that advisor to get his way after laughing at my son. So sweet. But she talks about knowing Kashi. She's like, your hair color is different, but your eyes remind me of Lady Kashi. And of course we don't see her. But Yona knows practically nothing of her mom because she died when she was very young. So she wants to know about her. And Lady Igni says, well, we used to encounter each other from time to time. But after we attained a certain status, we hardly ever saw each other. So basically, once they got, high up, they were marrying, the royalty of their tribes, they didn't really see each other that much because they had other duties. It's like, okay. But she came to the celebration when Yona was born. And I love that Hawk's looking at her like, oh, you're finding stuff out about your mom. And so meanwhile, while all this is happening, they're realizing about ZENO and Jaeha and them that they're close, but they could be in trouble, right? And so from there, I hate the idea of quit firing arrows at ZENO and Jaeha, please. And so Jaeha, he drops ZENO, and I love ZENO's reply later, where he's like, smack that green dragon because he knows that I can't die. It's like, but they go to find him. And I love that Yona tries to go after them too. And Igni says a woman's role is to see men off when they go into battle. Like, she's very old school conservative. And Yona's like, thank you, but Since they entered my life, I've been blessed with happiness beyond measure. And she's like, I have to go. And when Igni looks at her and opens her eyes even further, she looks a lot like Tae-Jun there. And she has the flashback of Kashi. And Kashi has those beautiful earrings and like the long flowing black hair. And her saying, because when she first saw Yona and them, she goes, white, blue, green, yellow. She counted the colors. And here she says, this child is under the protection of the white, blue, green, and yellow guardians. Not dragons, guardians. And she's like, what do you mean? Born to our nation, she is the red-haired child who possesses divine powers. Now the question is, how does Kashi know this? Was she pretty a devout follower of the dragon mythology and that's why King Il keeps it up? Did he keep it up after she died because she was so, like, devout about it? Is she related to the King Kiryu? Is she a descendant of him that married King Il? Like, what's the story? How does that work? Was she told by a priest about Yona in the mythology? Like, I'm so curious about Kashi now and Yona's birth that I want to know more, but we're not there yet. But Igni is like, nope, that's her. And then I like that he's like, stop, don't take the arrow out of me. And like he has the little fangs, and of course it heals up. And he's like, oh boy. And that's when KeiShuk is like, the power of immortality. And the way he grabs his arm and ZENO looks at him like you can just tell ZENO knows exactly what he's thinking. And he's like, I'm so tired of people only knowing me because I have immortality. Like, I feel bad for ZENO. I do. But then I love KeiShuk coming in saying, keep your hands off our brothers. I was like, they're brothers. I love it. It's so sweet. And KeiShuk's like, there are brothers, you leave them alone. And poor Jeha. Jeha's been hit, like, he's either been hit with arrows or he's fallen or he's been poisoned. Jeha has had a lot of shit happen to him over the course of this series. I feel bad for Jeha. I do. But KeiShuk, he's like, I want you to fire your arrows at the golden hair boy. I'm like, that's so cruel to see if he'll live. I was like, no, KeiShuk, you're trying to hurt ZENO. You're on my bad list. So we have another manga author note. A special thanks to everyone who has been helping me. My assistants, Mika Run, CF, Rio Sakura, Rio, Awafuji, Aka, and my little sister. My editor is Tokushige, the Hanatayume editorial office. Everyone who's involved in creating and selling Yona-related merchandise. My family, friends, and readers who always give me support and strength. Thank you for allowing me to draw manga. And so, yeah, he's like, I want to see whether he'll die. And I love that KeiShuk's like, our brothers are not things for you to experiment on. It's like, oh, yeah, they're not. Like, stop it. And then they all show up. And I like that KeiShuk is, like, examining the situation and seeing how everything, he's like, they're the monsters who threaten to throw Koka into chaos. And he's just, like, looking around, seeing all of this. And Hawk showing up and having the glaive around his neck, and Hawk is just pissed. Like, Hawk is the dark dragon. Like, his hatred and rage is very dragon-like. He almost seems like he's a dragon himself. It's like, oh, he's like, quit following us, it's creepy. So, I will say this for KeiShuk. I had not thought of it this way until he brought it up. But yeah, at this time, the people, the Fire Tribe, they're so in awe and religiously apprehensive of Yona and the others. They instantly want to like protect them. And KeiShuk is like, this is a glimpse of what will overtake the country. The idea of people fighting to get the protection of the dragon warriors and to get them to help their tribe over other tribes. He's like, this is exactly why I said we should kill Princess Yona. So for KeiShuk, he's like, this threatens to undermine the king's authority. So KeiShuk, it was nothing personal way back when. He was like, no, Yona has to go, because if she stays alive and the people start to follow her instead of Suwon, it's going to unravel everything we've worked towards, and I could possibly die. And so he asks Hawk and them where they found the dragon warriors, and Hawk tells the truth. He's like, well, our pretty genius boy offered them some food and they followed us, which is the truth, right? That's exactly what happened. There was no special treaty or anything. They were just like, you want some food, want to come with us? And that was literally it. And so Hawk asks this question. He's like, why is Droopy Eyes lying there like a broken doll? And God, the look on Hawk's face. Hawk is trying so hard to rein it in, but he's not there yet. He's trying to resist the urge to kill them. He just looks so terrifying. And so this is interesting, though. At this point, I was like, oh no. Because KeiShuk says, if my soldiers and I die today, most people will see this as an evil thing, punishable by death. His Majesty would have the excuse he needs to execute Yona and Hak. The thing I would fear would not come to pass. Is it worth risking my life here? No. I was like, oh. So he believes that if he can get Hak and them to hurt, if he can get Hak to hurt one of their soldiers or do something violent, he can pin Hak as a threat and have Hak eliminated and possibly have Yona eliminated, and that would solve our problems. He's like, then we'd have the Dragon Warriors to ourselves. But I'm like, he's not seeing the Dragon Warriors are not going to let them harm Yona. He doesn't know that, I think, to that extent like Gobi and them have seen. KeiShuk has not seen that. Suwon has not seen that. But he's like, if I can get... He's like, if the soldiers here or myself were to die, then we could pin it on Hak and Yona and get them executed by Suwon. And then that would be that. Our problems would be over. Yeah. But he says now's not the time. Not here. This is not the place to have that happen because the Fire Tribe is too devoutly devoted to Yona. He's like, this doesn't need to happen here. It needs to happen somewhere else. And it's like, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Nope. Mm-mm. And so he's like, and so then he just changes his tune entirely. He's like, look, I'm sorry. And he just like acts all, he just crawls, he leans over and shows his belly. And Yona is like, I don't want Hak to look like the bad guy. Like, she kind of figures it out, like what he's possibly getting at. And she's like, no, Hak don't. And so Hak stands down. And then Yoon's like, do you think he'll leave us alone now? And Hak's like, no, not a chance. And then we get more Kyo-ga fan service. I'm like, it's the gift that keeps on giving. Kyo-ga is quite an attractive guy. So I love that Kyo-ga's like, did I sleep with somebody? And his mom's like, you're 29 and you're hopeless. I love it. It's absolutely wonderful. But she gives him this piece of advice. She says, if you spurn those who help you, no one will bother you to offer you aid in the future. It's like, I love that. I love that she's like, you should pay back those that help you, or we won't get aid in the future from them, right? One good turn deserves another. And so I love that Kyo-ga gets on to Tae-Jun, but in the end, they decide to let them stay because it's a nice thing to do, and their mother was like all about it. And both of them seem to love their mother quite a bit. But who gave Jae-ha the right to look that good when he's sick? Who gave him the right? Who did this? Kusanagi, you make Jae-ha look so good with his hair down, but his hair's down only whenever he's sick. I'm like, I don't like it. I'm like, why? How dare you? I love, Hak gets so many great one-liners in this. Hak is like such a source of humor now. Now that he's confessed to Yona, it's like, let it out, buddy. We're here for it. But he's like, I have a message from ZENO. He knows by now there's no need to protect ZENO. Smack him for ZENO, fellow. So good. So good. But I love this moment where Jae-ha, like in the moment reading it, I was like, oh. When he says, I'm with all of you because I want to be. It's like, oh, Jae-ha wanted to be here. It's not the blood. It's him. And that moment where he's like, and he realizes that, he's like, ah! Where he's like, I have feelings for them. Like, it's Jae-ha admitting that he wants to be with Yona because, not because of his blood, but because he wants to be. It's like, and so then we go back to, Coolbo. I have a feeling I'm not going to like Coolbo at all. He seems, again, like a tool. Not happy for him. And then Gobi shows up, and Gobi's like, oh, if you capture her, you can control the legendary Dragon Warriors. It's the opposite of what happened at Shing. At Shing, they were like, if we capture the Dragon Warriors, we can control Yona. And now it's the opposite. I'm like, Gobi needs to just fall off a cliff. I don't want anybody to kill him, but if he meets an unfortunate end by accident, won't complain. So then, chapter 163, Lend Me a Hand. So, KeiShuk, wow, how appropriate KeiShuk's like, well, what if I lure the dragon warriors and Hawk and them onto the battlefield? If they just happen to die on the battlefield, my problem is solved. And if they don't die on the battlefield, then we've accomplished our goals. So it's a win-win for KeiShuk. KeiShuk's like, fine, I can't threaten the dragon warriors because that will only bring further dismay against Suwon. But if I ask them to come to the battlefield and join us against the Kai Empire, and they just happen to die along the way, it's no skin off our backs. And I'm like, oh, it's devilish and fiendish, but it's an effective plan, right? And so Kyoga's like, my hands are tied. He's like, I know he's possibly doing it to get you all, but he's like, we need the troops. We're in trouble. And so Kyoga then asks, he's like, Koga's at a disadvantage. The advisor needs assets. And Hawk's just like, you know, this guy conspired to kill King Il, and he put Yona through all this, and now he just wants us to fall in line and help him after all of that. And Kyoga's like, well, speaking of which, he's like, do you seek revenge against Suwon? And I love her speech. I love the speech that she gives. She's like, is it really strange to not seek vengeance? She's like, what happens if I kill Suwon? She's like, am I going to claim the throne? I couldn't do that. And we see a picture of him like dead. She's like, no. She's like, I've never forgotten the day I lost my father, and I don't plan to forgive Suwon. Like, it's just a definitive, I'm not forgiving him. Like, I don't have to. But my father loved this nation, and I love it too. And so I don't want to do anything that's going to harm it. And I think that's so good because, like, part of my degree is in like communications and mediation and like conflict resolution. That's part of the things I went to school for. And one of the things that we watched in grad school was we would watch these sessions where there'd be like a mom of someone whose child was murdered, and she would sit down with the murderer. And part of it was that they would have a mediation session, and it was so tense at first. And then in this one scenario, the son was stabbed by this guy. And so the mom sat with the guy that stabbed her son, and they had to talk through everything. And she had to realize, you know, and it came down to it. The point I'm making is at the end of the day, the mediator would say, you know, you don't have to forgive them. And the mom was like, I'm not going to forgive him, but I understand a little bit more of the situation. She's like, I can't forgive him for killing my son, but I'm not going to keep my heart full of hatred for this person instead of moving on with my life. So it's kind of like what Yona's doing here. She's like, I'm not going to forgive Suwon. He did something unforgivable to me, taking my father's life, but I follow my heart and I want to help the people I meet, and killing Suwon is not going to help them. So I'm not going to do that. And Kyoga's just like, but I like that Yona stands her ground and says, but KeiShuk hurt one of my friends that I care deeply about. So if I can't trust him, how can I help you? And Kyoga's like, well, I can't argue with that, right? And so Keisha and them try to convince her, like, it's okay if we join the battlefield. I like Keisha's like, we'll annihilate his expectations and accomplish great goals. Like, he's like a Boy Scout with it. And Yona's like, Keisha. And he's like, let's just focus on getting Jeha better and see what we do from there. And Hawk's just like, Hawk is conflicted because he's like, what do we do? And then I feel bad for Ogi. Ogi did not ask to get cornered by, these are clearly Gobi's men. I'm like, ugh, I hate that he's cornered by them to go capture Yona. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. And Jeha's injured. ZENO's not much good. Yoon's not much good. They're like not the people that should be with Yona to protect her. So we have another author's note. This is as far as the story goes in volume 28. I wish I could have included chapter 164, but I hope you'll check out volume 129. How dare you? Oh man, she knew it was a cliffhanger. I didn't realize volume 30 was coming so soon. The time it takes to draw each chapter just flies by. After doing this for so long, my sense of time's passage isn't very good anymore. It's going to take a bit more time to get through things before I get to the ending point of Yona the Dawn. I hope you'll stick with me a while longer. Oh, absolutely. Like, take your time. I'm here. I'm here for it. But, oh my God. Wow. So, yeah. We know you've been working with that girl. And so, Ogi, he could have died or he could take them to Yona, and he chose to take him to Yona. And so, then we get this amazingly romantic moment with Hawk and Yona, where he's like, I think I'm going to give Kyo-ga a hand. And he's like, Yoon, White Snake, the other dragons, we all feel the same. it's like he's like, after all, I don't really despise Tae-Jun anymore and they need our help. He's like, as long as that advisor needs our battle strength so badly, he can't mess with us. So yeah, Hak is like, he's like, well, as long as KeiShuk needs us, then he can't try to hurt us in any way, so we might as well help out and not be suspicious, right? Or not make ourselves any more of a target. And so then Hak's like, no, because Yona's like, I want to go too. And he's like, no, you and Droopy Eyes need to go someplace safe. Somewhere KeiShuk can't get you. Well, you know what? If they go to Kai Empire, I guess KeiShuk can't get him there. And I'm like, no. Oh, that's not what he meant. And then I love that she's like, I wish I had the strength of 1,000 men too. Then I could fight even on my own. And God, Hak, could you be more romantic? Could he be more romantic? Where he's like, give me your hands. And then he's like, I'm drawing strength from you. I have the power of 10,000 men. And that smile she gives him, she's like, I'm that powerful, huh? He's like, it's most effective on me. It makes me want to come back here. Oh my God, I can't. I can't. And then I love that she's like, I get strength from your hands too. And I get you to push me forward. I draw strength from you and I feel like I'm stronger than anyone. And I love the Hak's like, I'm about to do something I should not do in this public place, so I'm going to stop right now. Hak shows a lot of self-restraint, but you know he's just like he probably just wanted to like kiss her right in that moment. He's like, nope, can't do that, because he thinks that she doesn't love him like that. And so he's like, nope, I can't do it. And then she's about to tell him, she was about to say, I love you. I know it. I know she was about to say, I love you to him. I just know that she was. And damn it, Yoon, can you make the dinner 5 minutes later? I feel like if Yoon ever sees Hak and Yona alone, just go away for 5 minutes. Come back. Like, just, damn it. She was going to tell him that she loves him. And now, if in volume 29 she gets kidnapped, damn it. Okay. So then they're off to see General KeiShuk, Sheena and White Snake, Akija, and Hak are off. And so then they go to find Ogi, and Ogi just looks like the worst, like he's the worst person in the world. I'm like, dude, don't. Just make them turn back around. Just make them turn back around. Like, maybe next volume, make them turn around and get out of there. Ugh. I hate it. How dare they? So then we have this little mini comic that says True Stories, Little Jeha on a cup. And it's a cup with Ao. It says, the issue, Yona of the Dawn, doesn't have many couples. I think I was talking with my assistants about KeiShuk. KeiShuk doesn't seem like he likes women. Assistant F. What? KeiShuk like men? Assistant M. Never said that. In charge of hair glossing, and F's inking makes KeiShuk look beautiful. I do the glossing so I can tell. I don't know if he likes men, but he's extra harsh with women. KeiShuk's hatred of women comes through in the gloss of his hair. You don't know that. He might have a cute girlfriend at home, a real professional type. Why don't you tell us, KeiShuk? And then KeiShuk has like little ellipses. Interesting. Maybe KeiShuk doesn't like anybody. Kyoga's butt. The night after I finished chapter 159, I'm going to text my editor. After looking over my lettered pages, I realized that it would look more dynamic if Kyoga weren't wearing a towel around his waist during the battle with Kija in the bath, and that I should have shown his butt. I deeply regret that, but then if I remove the towel for the graphic novel, it'll look like I just really want to draw Kyoga's butt! My editor's response, Editor T. I think you should show Kyoga's butt, so please proceed. I don't usually suggest changes, but I feel this is important. In the end, time constraints kept me from drawing it. I'm sorry, Kyoga. Don't do that! Oh my God, the fact that she was like, I should have shown him the butt. He touched the butt. And then see you in the next volume, Chimney Sweep Sheena. The image on the cover is completely unrelated to Volume 28's contents. It's the most girly picture I've drawn of Yona when she was a princess. I wanted to put Kyo-ga and Tae-Jun on the cover, but I wasn't able to draw them well. Sad. Oh my gosh. This volume. I don't know if I'm going to be able to wait a week before reading Volume 29. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. Oh my god. So yeah, we're at chapter 164 next. No big deal. It's fine. I don't want Yona to get kidnapped and taken to Kai. I don't. But KeiShuk will be all about it because he'll be like, well, she's not our problem anymore. Now the Dragon Warriors or he'll send the Dragon Warriors after her, or he'll try to control the Dragon Warriors while she's gone and realize that's not going to happen. And the further they get away from Hiryu Palace, the weaker they become. So, Kusanagi, I'm doing the opposite of what this shirt tells me to do. I feel like Kusanagi intentionally did this. So this volume was great. It's one of my favorites. I love this volume a lot. Got some info, got Tae-Jun goodness, got comedy, got amazing romance with HakYona, got suspense, and now a giant cliffhanger. Like, this is one of the worst cliffhangers of the series so far. I really think it's one of the worst cliffhangers. I'm like, how dare you? What do we do? So yeah. So, I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. Please no spoilers, but I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I will be back very soon with volume 29 of Yona of the Dawn.